Q&A Friday number 4, fourth week in a row. In this episode, we're going to be talking about cold calls and their importance and establishing your role and responsibility within your company.
Okay, I've been working like 3 jobs. Probably why I never see ya. Probably why I never have time for the fake friends that won't be ya. Been ballin', but it's looking like they took a time out. Okay, I'm working on a Wednesday, then up again the next day. So-and-so is popping, man. I skip him like he leg day.
I'm sick of reading the questions, so I brought in Becca to read them. Becca, what's the first question?
All right, first question is from Mark. It's on cold calls. Do you think they are still effective or are they a waste of time?
Mark, thanks for that question. There's a lot of discrepancies out there about cold calls and whether or not they're effective, and people have written articles about it, shot videos about it. Here's my take on it. Cold calling is not as effective as it used to be, just like email marketing is not as effective as it used to be, but you still have to do it. In your field and what you guys are doing, especially anybody in manufacturing, the issue with the cold calls is most likely you're not doing them at scale. So when we used to do this as an agency years ago when we first got started, this was a service that we offered, was prospecting, doing cold calls, engaging with people, and then turning that over to the client. When we did it, we were making anywhere from 100 to 125 phone calls a day per person. That type of scale, you can see some results. All the data that we got from that basically showed that roughly around 76% of the time people were not answering the phone, because the people that we're trying to go after, you're not hitting them up on their cell phone, and if they're in purchasing, engineering, operations, you're basically banking on the fact of whether or not they're at their desk and whether or not they're willing to answer the phone, which a lot of times they don't because they screen their calls. So if 76% of the time somebody's not answering the phone and you're leaving a voicemail, most likely probably 98% of the time they're not going to call you back because you're trying to pitch them pitch them on a service. So with that being said, that small percentage of time that they do answer the phone or that they do call you back, it is worth it if you cannot get them from other locations from a marketing or sales standpoint. If you send an email and they don't respond, what else are you going to do? You're going to send them more and more emails until they do respond. Most likely that's not the best method to contact them, and everybody at the end of the day has their more preferred method of contacting. So you have to figure out what is that person's preferred method of communication. Sometimes it's easier to get a hold of people via email. Sometimes they want to text. Sometimes they are a talker and will sit on the phone or will answer the phone call. So cold calling is just one club in your toolkit that you can use to then try and get a hold of somebody. So if you email them, they don't respond, then you do need to follow up with a phone call. The way that I've always taught people to do it is if you send an email, then make a phone call. If you make a phone call, then you need to send an email, and those are right after each other. It gives you something to say. So if you're doing a cold call, you can say, hey, I just shot you an email, I want to make sure you got it, and then go into whatever it is that you're trying to do, secure an appointment, do a pitch, and vice versa. When you leave a voicemail after you do a cold call or after you do a warm call, you need to then send them an email because maybe they're not at their desk a lot. Maybe they don't really check their voicemails, or maybe they just listen to it and as soon as they hear a pitch, they hit delete. So they are effective as a tool, but it's not how it used to be. Same thing with cold visits. Cold visits are not as effective as they used to be, but that doesn't mean you can just completely forget it. And it seems like what I've seen over the years, the industry is kind of trying to transform into, well, either it's not working anymore, so let's never do it, or let's push on to email marketing. Once that doesn't work, let's just never do that. And then you end up just getting stuck to where you're not getting engagement from somebody. So you have to look at the different ways that you can communicate with somebody. Cold calling is one of them. Yes, you should still be doing it. No, it is not going to be as effective as it was 2 years ago or 10 years ago. But then once you realize that you've called this person 4 times over the last 4 weeks, they're not responding. During that time when they don't respond, hit them with an email, find them on social, hit them with a private message on social, do something to get their engagement. And if you have to, then you need to send some direct mail or do a cold visit. If they're not local to you, sending a direct mail piece, which is just a brochure or something to entice them to remember your name or respond to you with your business card, is just as effective as if you went to the place and asked the receptionist to see them and they say, nope, they're not available because they're never available, and then you leave your business card or brochure anyway. So going back to direct mail, that sometimes is effective, and it is cheap enough these days to where it could work and you might be able to get a response out of it. So keep on pushing through those different channels. Do not give up on cold calling. Just don't rely on it solely. There are people out there that can do that for you. It's a numbers thing. At the end of the day, if you make 100 phone calls over 3 days, versus a lot of people in sales are only willing to make like 10 or 15 or 12 a day. You need to up your quantity in order to bring it down. That's just basic sales. The more proposals you make, the more calls you make, the more emails you send, the more ways that you reach out, there's going to be a percentage of the time that people do engage and respond to that, and you just need to up that numerator to get the denominator to where it's where you want it to be. So keep making those cold calls. Don't listen to anybody else telling you anything different. Mark, thanks for the question. Hopefully that answer gave you some insights into how I feel about cold calls. What's the next question?
Our next question is from Brittany Wright. She had 2 questions. The first one is, what organizations, blogs, industry news do you follow and why?
Brittany, from an industry news standpoint and trends and things like that, back when I was in manufacturing, I used to follow it closer with plastics news and get a lot of my information from the resin suppliers. If we're looking at force majeures on certain chemicals or things like that, I basically just get it from around my tight-knit community of sources. Never really followed any big industry news because a lot of times what they're printing or saying isn't necessarily directly going to impact me. Right now, the only real industry news that we follow would come from our customers or people that I have within my network. So I still stay very tight to people that I've known for a long time in the industry of manufacturing and industrial. So to answer your question, there isn't a ton that we follow, and mainly it's because a lot of these places will print things or say things before they're actually an issue and never really believe anything, either that or they're just publishing a bunch of mergers and acquisitions, or even some places like Plastics News. That's where you can get your sources for, back in the day, who was going bankrupt and who was closing their doors or who was buying somebody. So I usually look at my network of people and I always stay very tight to the people within the supply chain. So getting very close with your resin distributors and suppliers, because they're going to hear about it way before you would normally hear about it, and they would probably hear about it before it even hits the news source or print or any sort of publication. They can give you a heads up on something before it actually hits the wave. So I always stay tight to my supply chain, corrugated suppliers, resin, chemicals, fixtures, automation, things like that. Keeping those guys really close to you and building that rapport is going to help you out, because in the future you never know where they could go to, or you never know where you might go into, to where you can, be using them whenever you have a need, whether it's for a career change or for a new project, or if you move on to a different company and you've got a good relationship with somebody, keeping that network tight, you can then use them at your new company. So industry news, not super important to us just because a lot of it's BS anyways. What's Brittany's second question?
You were in my shoes once. What helped you the most in establishing your role?
Brittany, great question. So establishing your role, what I assume that you're talking about is within your company. The only way that I was ever able to establish my role and really get credibility is closing deals. Whenever I would first go into a company, I would say, I want to make all these changes because everything was jacked up. And I just knew that these changes would make things work. But you can't get buy-in from anybody else at the organization until you go and bring that deal to the table and say, I just closed an X amount of dollar deal. Then you do that a couple times, you start to earn credibility. So you can establish your role by either building out your department and having the foresight into how you want to make changes, but nobody's going to believe you until you actually come in and prove that you can back up what you're actually talking about. So at your organization, in the field that you're in, what you need to focus on is making sure that you can still hunt, and in order for you to stay hunting, you have to bring people under you that are going to actually, work the account. So having an account manager or customer service rep under you, having a project engineer that can handle a project if it's new tooling, and letting them be the point person to where you're still in the loop, but they can take it from there. Going down the path of closing a deal, working the deal, managing it, being the customer service, making sure the shipping and all that stuff goes out the door, quality is good, is great in theory, but that's not scalable. And what ends up happening is you go from a hunter to a farmer. You go out, and if you close your own deal and you bring it in, eventually you're just going to be an account manager, which one is going to help you financially, two, it's not going to help the company grow and scale to wherever they want to go, and three, it's just going to make you not like your day-to-day routine anymore. You're not going to be able to travel, you're not going to be able to interact, and you're not going to have any drive or motivation to do more sales. So to establish that role, first think about how you want to build out the department, go in there, lay some deals on the table, get those things closed. Then you have the opportunity, authority, and ability to go to the ownership group and say, hey, this is what I want to do. You've seen what I can do. I want to keep doing that. Now I want to make these changes. That is the only way it's going to work in sales. That it's the only job where you can do that. Sales is also the only department that you have a direct, significant impact on total revenue of your business. Operations is working on efficiencies, quality is working on efficiencies, and customer service. Everybody's doing their part, but sales is the only one that can come in and be a game-changing opportunity if you go out and say, hey, I've got this $4 million deal, it's gonna book out 6 machines. You bring that to the table, that changes everybody's day-to-day job. That changes the outlook and the future of the company, that changes plans for expansion, that changes the financial capacity of the company. You're the only person that can do that. Anybody in sales is the only person that can do that. So you have to bring that to the table, close some deals, then you can start to be in a position of power and start to pull those strings to make sure that the department shapes out to how you want it to be. And then you have the confidence and buy-in from the ownership group, the C-level, the other managers, whoever it is, because they're gonna say, yep, I'm gonna trust her, I'm gonna trust him, because they've proved that they know what they're doing and they brought in some business and we're booming now. So I'm gonna trust that whatever they want to do to manage that business and make changes moving forward is actually gonna work. You gotta establish that trust. Even if they trust you initially, they're not gonna trust you until you close deals. So talk is cheap, you gotta show them and close those deals. So I appreciate that question, Brittany. Mark, Brittany, thanks for those questions. Hopefully that helped you out. If you guys like this content, hit that like button. If you guys have any questions, share this out, leave a comment below. I'll answer them. Send me a private message, and we will see you on the next one.
Oh, crap.
Were we not recording that whole time?
Recording, dude.
Are you serious?
I'm joking.
Oh my God. B-roll. Because I could do it again.